Cheers, my dears. Happy Friday. Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Cheers, you made it to Friday. You did it. You're right there on the threshold of the weekend. Whatever that means for you, if that makes any difference at all, always feels nice when it's Friday. Hello, everybody. I'm in a different place yet again. I am hiding in Jocelyn's room upstairs because if the kids know that I'm home and that I'm running a show, and they will find me sooner or later, probably sooner, they will be here and distracting me like crazy. So I thought, let's go for as long as we can, having some fun, having some drinks before they descend, which is probably inevitable. My screen changed. Why? I could see all day Microsoft or whatever it is was just dying to give me an update. It's been a full 24 hours. Why not? Where the heck is my update? It's been 24 hours. It drives me crazy. It changes everything when it gives me these wonderful gifts. Well, cheers, my dears. Doreen, happy Friday night. Karen, great to see you. Karen, your design is coming out so well. We started the promo gown, right? It's a one-time thing, but I offer it 2 times. It was Wednesday, and it's coming up again on Sunday night. And Karen did it on Wednesday, and she sent a message. I hope you don't mind me relaying, Karen, and said she was kind of stuck on this design for an autumn design with a squirrel. She wanted to use a squirrel with a little nut. She was kind of stuck on it, and she said that taking that McGown class, we do a design light class every month. I always say it, but this month it was promo gown, so we were just talking about straight promo gown designs, but also how they translate to more contemporary designs and different styles, more graphic, aesthetic, but still using promo gowns tips and tricks, right? And with that class, Karen was able to put together immediately a beautiful design with a very lush promo gown border, but beautiful little squirrel in the center that reminded me of that heirloom pattern chatterbox, but yours is much, much clearer and prettier, and it's very, very solid. It is a masterpiece, and you should be proud. Barbara, good to see you. Teresa, great to see you too. And Robin, cheers, my dears in Wisconsin, great to see you. Gail, happy morning. Happy weekend to you. Happy Saturday morning in Australia. Cindy, good evening. Good to see you in Northern Illinois. Catalina, so happy you're there. Happy Friday. Linda, cocktail night and from Massachusetts. Great to see you. I guess we're getting snow again, Linda. I guess it's coming back for us. Tomorrow the forecast is possibly snow. Wintry mix, which always means that snow is among the choices. Kirsten, great to see you. Cheers, my dears. I got my Flights of Fancy glass today. I got this right before COVID. One of my girlfriends here in town, her son is also autistic, and that's kind of how we met. We were together on the special education PTA. She turned out to be one of my great friends, Kim. She is a professional puppeteer. You don't get that often, do you? She has a degree. So between us, we're like a couple of peas from the same pod, a degree in costume design and construction, degree in puppetry. You think, where did these things lead? But we're both having happy lives. That's the main thing. Happy lives with lots of bank troubles, getting better all the time. But she invited me to do this great thing that I wouldn't call New Haven by any means my town. I can't stand it, to be honest. But it is considered like the cultural capital of Connecticut. She invited me to this event they had right before COVID called Flights of Fancy. And you probably have something like this near you. It was an evening where, in downtown New Haven, that's where Yale is. So it's very, student heavy. But there's a lot of beautiful stores that really cater, I hear footsteps, that really cater to students. That kind of stores I would normally go to, chain stores and whatever. A few galleries, a few art stores. But on this particular evening, you checked into this old hotel in the center of town. I forgot the name of it. It's just beautiful, really beautiful, and got some kind of a passport, right? And it told you with a map what businesses were participating. And every business it was a wine tour, right? They gave you this glass that you got to keep, and you took a picture with funny hats on and posted it to advertise, right? So everybody else would know to come down. And it was so cold. It was in the dead of winter. It was one of those nights I didn't think I was going to make it. And we went from shop to shop, Patagonia, the Gap, an art store, whatever. And in every store, some of them had cheese and snackies and things, but they all had wine. So it was like wine tasting, just a tiny bit, tiny bit. But it was so much fun. And I remember immediately after that happened, it was COVID. And so I'm especially careful with this glass. And she is with hers too. Whenever we talk about it, I say, don't you have weird feelings about this glass? Because it was almost like life ended immediately after this evening. And everything changed so quickly. And it was just amazing to as we all remember. It was amazing to think back to that time and go, God, it was just like 2 weeks ago. I was like traipsing around the center of the city at 10 o'clock at night drinking wine, and now we're all, locked up and afraid to go to the grocery store. I was afraid to go through the drive-through at CVS for prescriptions. It was amazing how it changed, isn't it? Crazy. A weird little souvenir of that time. Happy little souvenir of that night. Let's see, Cat's Gallery. Good morning. Good to see you. Gayla, great to see you. Aileen, all my buddies are here. Great to see you. It's snowy in Toronto. No, it's not spring yet. A little bit longer. It's a don't hold your breath, but it's not too far away. We can almost see it around the bend. Chrissy, great to see you. Excited for cocktail night. Me too, except you know what? I'm not exactly ready, so I'm winging a lot of it tonight. It's not that I have not been diligent about getting it together. It's just I went down quite a few rabbit holes today, and they were all super timely. So tonight is a cozy night of thinking, talking, looking at images of bed rugs, and I'll tell you why, but also bigger overarching ideas, right? We'll come back to that in just a minute. It's going to be cozy regardless. Deborah, great to see you in Phoenix, Arizona. Good to see you. April, good evening. And Lisa, good evening. Oh, snow coming tomorrow. Us too. Us too. And it was so funny yesterday. It was a busy day in the afternoon. I had to take Joss over to Tap at where my studio is, but otherwise I didn't need to go that day. I was just hunkering down with other work projects. And so I had to take her out for a tap. So I took her out there. And then, I mean, this is just so counterintuitive, but the kids are obsessed with going to the gym with me because I did sign them up again. I started going last week. I feel like I'm a size 2 again. I've only gone 3 times, but I feel great. And the kids were nagging me to go too. So I said, well, you can come too, but I want you to wear your masks. And they are the only kids at this point who are wearing masks because the mandate is done and there are like no cases around us. But I am still feeling really nervous about it. But they've been having a good time and they enjoy doing all that. So I got just so crazy busy yesterday that when we got out of the car, by the time we finished up at the gym, we went bang, bang, bang like a pinball doing all these errands at once. Teddy didn't have his coat on, and at that point it was like 10 degrees, and I was like, Teddy, where's your winter coat? Because there's only one that fits him. Oh, I don't know. And I thought, oh my God, is it possible it's at school? Is it possible it's at Tap? Is it possible it's in Bethany? Because we were upstairs waiting for Joss. I mean, is it at the gym? I mean, it was just ridiculous. But wouldn't you know, it was on the floor of the back seat. He doesn't even sit in the back seat of the car. Completely inexplicable. But I'm glad that we have it because I thought, man, I don't want to spend today driving around looking for the coat. Didn't get him either. Like a cat with a canary right now. But because snow's coming tomorrow, right? Oh, man, I'm telling you. Dave, good to see you. Dave, oh, I was going to say, tell us what you got. You got the ribs. Oh, that sounds so messy. I love it. Courtney, great to see you. Sharon, great to see you. I'm so happy you're there. I'll keep an eye out over here. You know, I'm going to be very distracted with that moth. I'm going to have to just let go. It's not that kind of a moth. It's the pantry moths are back already. I think this weird up and down temperature thing, somebody made a joke on Facebook. I'm sure it was one of these meme things and not like a friend. But somebody said, at least for us here in Connecticut, the weather lately has been like the lottery. Like you're just shouting out numbers like 10, 58, 40, 22. I mean, they have no relationship from day to day to each other. And I think it's confused bugs, people, children, the car, everything. Everything seems upset, unpredictable right now. The weather's been crazy. And I've been crazy too because I've been working on the book a little bit less because I'm getting there, which is a great feeling. And I'm catching up on orders. And it's starting to make me think of other things that are a bit broader, right? Because I'm finally done with busy work, right? I'm getting there anyway. Incidentally, I put a painting up behind me that I think is really beautiful. This is one of my presents I got for Christmas that I didn't have time to show you because it was large and I couldn't get it in the car. It's a beautiful town that's near me called Collinsville. And it's an old mill town where they make the axes. That's where I was last weekend looking at those antique stores. What a beautiful town. But you know, I've been thinking about things that need doing, right? So maybe this is a good time of year to think about this. So things that need doing. So I checked and made sure, I'm not doing advertising here. Believe me, nobody pays me. I checked to make sure my ATHA membership was good. It is. That my Rug Cooking Magazine membership was good. It is. I joined at, my friend Lori wrote, and she said something about, because I've been running this Pearl McGown class, and shame on me, I don't know a lot about the Pearl McGown Guild. I just assumed, and one should never assume, right? I assumed that it was just for people who were certified Pearl McGown teachers, and it's not. And she said, you know, the newsletter they do is great. It has a lot of info in it. And I thought, shame on me. I ought to know that, right? Because my buddy Donna, who's over at Whispering Hill, she's a certified teacher. And, you know, I've bought from her a lot of her back issues, going like as far back as when they started. And I haven't even dug into those yet. But I joined that either yesterday or today. I joined it because it was only $25 a year. And I thought, at worst, the newsletters aren't as useful as I hope they are, because I'm hoping they are, and that there's a lot of information in there for me to impart, you know, right, and share and pick different things out that we think are useful and helpful for us. And at worst, I made a $25 donation to an organization for rug hooking. That also fantastic. It's a win-win. So I did that, and then I got online, and I was looking at messages that people had sent me that I had starred a while back. Those little stars you can put on your email. Don't let me forget. Don't let me forget. What is it called? I might have to remind myself because I am that bad. It's a guild of rug braiders, not hookers, in Pennsylvania. Lisa, do you know who I mean? Let me see. I'm sure I got a receipt. Valley Forge Rug Braiding Guild. Well, I checked them out because I had starred a reference in my email to them earlier. I think somebody sent me an idea, or I had gotten something, and I just was too busy to think about it. And I went on this morning and I looked at this Valley Forge Rug Braiding Guild, because I'm not a big traditional braider. I am a start with 4-strand braider and work up to like 8 or 10. But I love braiding, and I want to do more braiding, and I want to use more braiding in our work, what we talk about, classes, finishing, and all that stuff. But I thought, you know what, let me see what they do. Well, I'll tell you what, I logged onto their site. They have an unbelievably amazing program of events coming up, and they are not all rug braiding. I was in shock. I immediately joined, and joining for the year was like $15, right? I mean, it was crazy. It was a crazy amount. And I could see that they have constant events. And it's like once you're a member, it's like $5 to join an event. So for example, I signed up for an event coming up on this coming Wednesday with them. And let me show you the image of it. It's a book that I own and I have loved. And the author will be coming on Wednesday to talk about this book. It's actually about penny rugs. This book here. Do you recognize this one? Penny rugs. So Janice Sonnen is coming on to that guild on Wednesday night. And, you know, it's $5 for a ticket. And you log on and you can hear her talking about this book, which is just, I'm telling you, this is like the definitive, right? This is like the all-time guide for penny rugs. I absolutely love this book. But they had all kinds of other stuff, Valley Forge Braiding Guild. They had all kinds of other stuff going on. Coming up, they have like a Zoom. Everything is Zoom. Nothing is in person. They had something coming up that was like, there has been a challenge, or they put the challenge forth. This year is the year for, if you are a rug braider, braiding in the shape of fruit. Now, these are very specific conversations that we have, aren't they? They're not for everybody, but I think they're for us. I have seen people braiding fruit like rugs, and I always think that is so quirky and sweet and cheerful. I don't know how to braid rugs shaped like fruit, so I'm hoping to learn that so that one of these days I can hold up my fruit-shaped rug. These are crazy conversations, right? These are sentences you don't expect to say in your life, but so charming and just something else to think about and consider. So I joined, and I would strongly advise, if you have any interest, not just in rug braiding, because when I joined, the girl wrote, and I said, you know, I want to promote your thing. I'm going to tell a lot of people about it. I think you're doing great work. I'm super happy to be a member. And she wrote and said, oh, great. We'd love it. Maybe they are all booked up this year for speakers, but they said maybe next year you could speak. And I said, I would love to. That would be great. And she said, because we're trying to do more than just braiding. So they're going more and more. They got the penny rugs on Wednesday. They've got more and more going on as time goes on, a little more varied, a little broader interest. So crossover for people who are interested in rug making at all, and I think textiles at all. So that'll be a lot of fun, and that's one to watch for like $15 a year. I mean, come on, that's so crazy, isn't it? With such a good price, I was very excited. Teresa says, I love Janice Sonnen. I've done several of her patterns. I didn't even know that she did patterns, right? I didn't even know you could. Oh, of course you could. I'm thinking it's a braided rug. It's a penny rug. Of course. I mean, that book is chock full of history, beautiful inspiration, wonderful patterns. It's a Schiffer book. It really is gorgeous. And I just can't wait to log on Wednesday. I'll probably be working on a project when I do, but it'll be fun to just sit and listen to someone else talking and hear what they're saying. And I already love the book, right? So I'm like an easy sell at that point. I want to hear whatever she's got to say. It all sounds great. Oh, Doreen, you were having a problem. I'm glad you reset. Yeah, that is a thing, isn't it? Constant things. Karen says, I have a notebook full of McGown newsletters from the 70s. There you go. We're going to be coming to those soon. Because my experience with the older newsletters that I got from Donna was there's a lot of like due diligence in them, like recording things and names and things like that. And there's a few articles in each one. It might be that there's more now, but I think regardless, they're full of information, patterns, and names. And from a historical point of view, I'm always trying to find and put together names and patterns and people. So that is going to be the great, for me, late 20th century source for getting the sort of chronology of rug hooking a little bit more tidied up, a little bit tighter. They look like they are wonderful for that. Caroline, great to see you. Oh, great. So, I did that. I was doing things like that. And I would say, please let me know if you are in a guild or in a group and you haven't seen me active in there. I would love to know because number one, I would love to tell people about it on the show. And there are so many people of different interests, right? And different geography who would love to be brought together, love to know. There are people who, to different degrees, are searching for things to do. So I always want to know. It's never... Sometimes someone will say, oh, I was going to tell you, but it's like nothing to do with your company or whatever. Oh, I never care about that. I am happy to promote direct competition, knowing that it's going to be useful and happy for someone. And I know you'll come back to ribbon candy hooking sooner or later because we do exciting things all the time. But I'm always happy to promote other people in other groups. I'm happy to, I'm eager to, and I want to. I'm just not a super great detective and I don't have a ton of time. So sometimes I need you to tell me what gives and what's going on so I can share it. Speaking of which, I've been, in my free time, a real little skunk. One of my resolutions for myself, ever since I've been getting to a better point in life and a better point with finishing the book, is trying to spend more time with the kids, right? It's easy with Joss because at night she just wants to read books and lay in bed and paint our nails and things like that, and that's easy. Brush hair and tickle each other with the shaving thing, the little soft bristle brush. So she's easy. Teddy, he likes it when I sit with him, and he plays his video games and I make remarks that are meaningless, but he really enjoys being together that way. So I've been spending time in the evening sitting with him with my hooking on my lap because I'm just such a jerk. I just can't do nothing. And he doesn't seem to mind. And I was working on that design that Joss drew that is the free pattern on Fiber Tape that comes with the monthly kit this month, which is Mother Nature's robe or robes. And this is Jossie's design. And I have to say, I got going on it because I was using a lot of strips. I was using a lot of the dipped stuff, right? Like the color changing stuff. The light's not great in here. But I was loving the way it was coming out. And then when I looked at it from a distance, I thought it looks super sort of ethnic to me, which is not a bad thing, obviously. It's just not what I was going for. And I thought, what happened? What happened? I used too many colors is what happened. So I was looking at it and I brought in some pinks which weren't in the original pattern. I always like pink opposite orange, right? And I have a lot of cools and a lot of warms. And that's just important as dark, light, dull, bright. So I got going with it. I'm nowhere near finished, right? I'm going to go around those little sort of feathery slash lamb's tongues around the edges. But you know what I thought I would do to kind of save it in my mind, because I didn't see it as a super mola looking piece. And if you can see, I did some of the inner outlining with like an indigo nightshade color, a bluey purple. And when I get to the edges, I'm doing it more with like a dark, dark, dark aubergine maroon. Colors are not exactly true on the monitor. But you know, I'm going to give this a try and I'm going to let you know how it goes. The way that I think I'm going to save this in terms of bringing it back to what I thought it would be in the first place, I think what I have to do, because originally I thought, well, obviously I'm going to use my 1980s dusty rose in the background. That's like my favorite color. And I thought, but if I do that, I could, using more solids, I could really further the look of it looking like a mola, like a Mexican mola. And I don't want to do that this time. And I thought the only way I can really bring this back is if, for example, I use a patterned wool. I think that's the only way to bring it back to looking like a more traditional rug hooking pattern, which is what I want. So I'm going to try these two. I'm only going to use one, but these are two of the patterns that I'm considering using. This is probably not enough, but I'm thinking about other plaids and black wash and stuff, just because I feel like there's so many colors here. It got to looking like a coloring book page. But I think if I drop a patterned wool into the background, it will sort of evoke traditional rug hooking again. And I'm hoping it does, because I'm not super happy. I did it while he was playing video games and I was only half paying attention. And I didn't really stop to put it down and look at it and take any kind of a survey as I was going along. And these things happen, don't they? So I'm not pulling anything out, that's for sure. Mama doesn't have the time for that. But I am going to try to retrieve it and bring it back to the original idea, and I'll let you know how that goes. Oh, what's going on here? Robin says, Valley Forge Rug Braiding Guild. Someone was asking, sorry, what was that group? Yep, you got it. You got it. You know, they were just great. Everything that they had on the calendar. There's another talk later this month. There's multiple things just happening in March. I'll never think of her name, but a girl, it was a European book. I feel like it was German, on punch needle. And I reviewed it late last year. I think when it first came out, I pre-ordered it and came out. I immediately reviewed it on Coffee Time. It was a beautiful, very contemporary punch needle book. I should have put the image on, but you'll see it on the Valley Forge website with I feel like it had a bird cage on the cover and real tropical colors, really beautiful. But that author is coming on, I believe, later this month, March, to talk about her work in that book. So they have got a lot of stuff going on. It is well worth logging on and looking at their calendar of events, because again, to join for $15 and then to spend $5 on the classes that you like, that is so well worth it to support a group that is doing good work, right? Important and good work. So let me have a sip of my drink. I need to wet my whistle. Thank you. I do like it. I do like it. I just felt like I went astray. That can happen, right? So there's a reason why I went down the bed rug hole, because we did review that. I don't want to say review. We enjoyed immensely the book on bed rugs that we looked at a while back that I got at Donna's store. That was written, I think, right around 2000. It was a very dense historic book with lots of beautiful pictures, and I think we all enjoyed that. And then I had it in my head on my to-do list, right? And this morning was the morning for it. And you know, I'm taking a detour here, but when I woke up this morning, I started doing this stuff and trying to catch up with a few things, because I still have 1,010 things to do. It's not like I have any leisure time. I'm just like forcing the leisure time. I went to the gym again and I took a step class. Did you even know that people were stepping anymore? I have not stepped for 20 years. I was so afraid that when I was attempting to fly over my step, that I would do what I did like 20 years ago when I took my last step class and have a massive wipeout. The kind of horrible wipeout where your legs are on one side of the step and your body's on the other, and everybody's looking at you going, oh my God, are you okay? And you wish that you could say, well, I am okay, but the one thing that I could really use is for you to stop looking at me and speaking to me and just pretend that I am invisible, because I am like sprawled over my step and my underpants are showing. So the best thing you can do for me is just back it up. But you can't say things like that when people are like sincerely not laughing at you when you've fallen. But I didn't fall this time. 50 years old, and it went fast. I felt like I did great. I thought maybe the teacher would be crying herself to sleep tonight because she thought a usurper had come into the class and was taking it over. That's my trash talk, so I go again. But it was so fun, and it really energized me. I have to say, I'm not going to get on a health kick or whatever. I will never stop eating Doritos, but I have to say, eating a little bit healthier and going to the gym just 3 times so far has made like some kind of a crazy tweak in my head, and it's wonderful. It's given me all this energy to do other stuff. Do you still have your stepper? I just can't do that stuff alone or with videos. I need the competition of seeing other people doing it at the same time. I'm such a rat. So, you know, I was doing that, and then I came back, and I was really revved up. And I was thinking, okay, what else do I need to get done? I had just joined like 2 groups. What else do I need to get done? What else have I let slide that is so important, that I need to catch the ball before it completely drops? And I thought, oh my gosh, you know what? That wonderful bedrug exhibit is on at the Florence Griswold House, which is one of my favorite places on earth. It is in Old Lyme, Connecticut, in the Connecticut River Valley, which is, in my opinion, the prettiest part of Connecticut. Very, very old towns, very historic towns, lovely old houses. And the Florence Griswold House is one of the most beautiful by far. It's often called the cradle of the American Impressionism, because it was like an old sea captain's house, Florence's dad. And when he died, he left it to her, but she really at one point ran out of money and had no means of keeping this super large, stylish house, with all of this beautiful furniture, right? Sea captain, he had accrued a lot of great things over his lifetime, but she ran out of money, and she started taking in boarders, in the late 19th, very last years in the 19th century, early 20th century. And the first people she took in were, the school of painters called tonalists. Like Henry Ward Ranger was one of her boarders, probably the most famous and certainly one of the most famous tonalists. But while people like Henry Ward Ranger were there, new people started showing up from New York City who wanted more healthy air. The property is right on the Lieutenant River. It runs right through the backyard of the the Griswold House. It is so beautiful and idyllic there. And there used to be donkey carts and things coming through, bringing boarders back and forth to the train station to go back to New York City. But people came for the healthful air. They called it healthful then and not healthy. And there would be like, I've pulled up, not lately, but years ago, I pulled up newspaper, and my mom helped me with this because I was working on a book at the time about a fictional book based on the real people who had been boarders at the Florence Griswold House. Famous artists like Childa Hassam, Matilda Brown, one of the only women who was, a proper artist making a living that way. And she was primarily a livestock painter, but also just beautiful landscapes. But my mom and I were, I was living abroad at the time, researching, and she was pulling up all kinds of newspaper stuff, from the archives. Everything's online now, or at least, you can visit and find stuff out. But I mean, there were days during these times when the artists would have been there where they introduced like the first phonograph record player, into a public building, and everybody came. And it didn't say anything about any of these artists showing up, but they must have walked over, because this huge event had happened, and they put the phonograph on a table, played it for the first time, and everybody was like, this is witchcraft. How can this? And it's just such cool stories that happened around that time. It's such a cool history associated with this house, with these very famous painters. So they are hosting a bedrug exhibit, and that got me going with the bedrugs tonight. But we have not seen, and you remember if you watch the bedrugs episode on Coffee Time, we have not seen a bedrug exhibit for decades, at least in southern New England. And the last one was at the Wadsworth Athenaeum. But when I called them to try to track down the whereabouts of some of these rugs, they just didn't know where they were. And I found that very worrying. I'm sure they're somewhere, but we didn't find out, and I never got any further. Well, the bed rugs that are on loan for this exhibit at the Florence Griswold House are from the Henry Ford Museum, Sturbridge Village, Colonial Williamsburg. I mean, they are from all over the Wadsworth Athenaeum, right? So they must have turned some up. Exciting collection of bed rugs, because you hardly ever see this. We're going to go a little bit into the history tonight and look at a bunch of bed rugs. You hardly ever see this. The bed rugs were much earlier textiles, right? but they are often confused with being hooked because of the way that they were made. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But what I did today was I called David, who I met years ago. He's like the program manager and the outreach person at the Florence Griswold House. I met him years ago when I was putting together a library exhibit for fun. And he happened to be speaking, and I included some stuff about the Griswold Museum on that night. We met and were buddies then, but I haven't been in touch for years. He was very happy to be in touch again, and he put together a group tour for us. So the thing is that the money has to be collected. If you are local and you can make it, it is Friday. They only do group tours on weekdays, so I chose a Friday because I thought that was a bit of a fun day, right? Friday, April 22nd. At 11 in the morning, right? And we'll be there for a good hour and probably longer. Looking at the bed rugs, we have a guided tour of the bed rugs if you're able to make it. I think I put the tickets at $17 because I had to also add tax to it, right? So I figured I'd collect it so you don't have to bring cash and I can just give it to David before we go. I hope that you're able to come. It will be worth the drive if you're anywhere near us. We're looking at a guided tour of the bed rugs at the Florence Griswold Museum. And then we are also getting a private tour of the Griswold House, of Florence's house. And we're hearing that great history of the American Impressionist artists. Such an inspiring tour, and looking at some of the most important paintings like in the U.S., right? And not only that, but he said to me, we have one hooked rug in our collection and it's never on display because it's not really relevant to the history of the famous artist Borders, right, from like the early 1900s, 1900s. But he said, but we still have it because it belongs to the house. And he said, I will take that one hooked rug that we have out for you for the tour in a private place, and your group can look at it. We can look at it. And enjoy that. I have no idea what it looks like, but I think it's the one I found in a photograph from a book from the 1950s that's on the floor. I'm thinking it's the same one. So it looks like that era of rug, like, older. It looks like a 19th century rug, a beautiful floral medallion, but old. So it'll be a great day. And for that money, I thought this is a no-brainer. We have got to go. If there's any way that you can go, please go. I will certainly be there. And whether it's a good day or not, my plan is, because it's the beginning of spring at that point, I'm going to be feeling it for sure. After we do that, I'm certainly going to drive over to a nearby town called Essex, which is a beautiful, beautiful town. The most gorgeous main street with lots of little shops and one of the oldest old coaching inns in the country, where you just can't imagine what this thing looks like. It is so impossibly charming, the Griswold Inn, the Gris. So I'll certainly be heading over after that. If you feel like making a day of it, I'm going to do a lot of shopping, little museum stores and little gift stores, and it's just precious. No chain stores, just precious. And I'll probably stop and have lunch and a drink at the Gris. So it'll be a full day for me, and I hope that you can join too. But the tour itself, it's basically two different things, and we're going to have a special view of that rug. It makes such a nice, I'm sorry, Karen. I'm going to take some photos, if not a video. So that night when I come in to do cocktail time, I will show you, I'm not going to say I'm going to show you what you missed. I'm going to show you all the great things that there are to see. This is not a traveling exhibit. So if you are anywhere near and you think you can make it, what a great opportunity. And certainly all the little, I don't know if you're a hotel person. I'm certainly like a skanky motel person. Although I love a good romantic B&B, depends on who I'm with. I love a good motel, and at that time of year, everything is so cheap. So even if you're driving down, you could make such a wonderful weekend of it. I could give you a great itinerary of things that are immediately there that would be so much fun to do. And I might even do them with you, as long as no one is holding a metaphorical gun to my head with any crazy projects. I wish you were closer to, it does sound like fun. Oh, Mom, you just woke up. You fell asleep. My mom was just down in that area today, the seashore area, having a day out with her girls. I'll have to catch you up on that. And if you are going to come, just know there is a cap on how many people can go. It's like 45, but I do expect to have that many people based on our other gatherings when we get together. But I do also want to say that if you are going to come, make sure that you know that you are very welcome to bring whoever you want, whether they are rug hookers or not. It's not just a rug hooking thing, right? We're looking at bed rugs, which is a general public exhibit, and we're looking at the Griswold House. We're just having fun. So if you want to bring partner, girlfriend, husband, daughter, best friends, gaggle of buddies, go ahead and do it. When it's sold out, it's sold out. But until that point, it's all us. And he even said that there would be wiggle room because they could give us multiple guides. So bring whoever you want to bring and share that event with, because it closes on May 1st. So we will be at the tail end of that. Hello, Joy. Great to see you. Courtney's already on. She's going to tease you. So, when I got off the phone with David, I got really into the bed rug thing again. And I started having all these big thoughts about it, just thinking about it, because we know, we're going to go back into it in case you didn't see the coffee time. It was months ago I was just peeling gum off of a magazine. Who put that there, right? Um, if you didn't see that episode, I'm going to go back into the history and look at some new stuff that I found. But we did talk about bed rugs because it's a huge part of American history and it's an important part. So let's look at some of these coverlets. Let's get going with this episode. Please put comments and remarks. I'm going to pose a lot of questions tonight that are abstract and that require opinions and not facts, because you have to remember, and this is one of the big thoughts that I came to today, when we're talking about bed rugs, you get all of these books, right? Historians and scholars who have great information and great pedigree, but at the end of the day, there is so much that is unknown about this period of history. And the weakest area of social history is certainly textiles. So when we talk about, oh, there were not many bed rugs in southern New England, well, actually there were tons in northern New England, less. But we just don't know. We just don't know. And a lot of things that are written down that are meant to be regarded as gospel are certainly not, right? And we know that because we know that every single time an academic or just a person doing a makeover on their home finds something important like a diary or a document or something, it often skewers and completely changes what we know about a certain subject. It's all a work in progress. We can't possibly know. So sometimes people spout things because they like to hear their own voice, because they think they're an authority on the subject. But at the end of the day, there is only so much information to know about this era of textiles, and particularly about bed rugs. Because as of the 70s, when most of the sources were written that include the conversations on bed rugs, there were only like 15 known at all. So we have very little to work on. We know a little bit more now, but not much. So your opinion matters just as much as anybody's, right? Books aside. So I looked at a few of my sources that I thought were the best for bed rugs, because I went way down the rabbit hole in preparation for tonight. This is one of the books that I busted out, American Quilts and Coverlets. So you can imagine this was a great source. By the way, if you do want to come to the Florence Griswold House for the bed quilts and for the tour and for that day out with us, April 22nd, I put the link. I put tickets on the Ribbon Candy Hooking site because, again, I need to collect. If we're going to get the group rate, which is like super cheap as opposed to the regular rate, I have to hand over the money in one lump sum. I remember this from my tour guide days, and it is impossible. So I put tickets on the site so you can buy them in advance, and then I can give the money from my credit card or something like that, right? So that we're not nickel and diming it at the door. We can't possibly waste time doing those kinds of shenanigans. So I busted out this, and if you don't like to use your credit card or something like that, you can always send a check or something. Just let me know what's going on. I just want to get the money in advance so that it's not a thing and we don't waste 20 minutes standing there. Deanna, could you explain again? I'm sorry, what they're called. Yes, Catalina. So we're going to look at some pictures imminently, but bed rugs, that is a very good way to start. Bed rugs were as thick as rugs for the floor. So they become known as rugs, right? Which has a Scandinavian base. We're going to talk about that. That word in itself is a textile word. But these were textiles that were as thick as rugs, but they had to be used on the beds. Because in early America, in the settlement days, right, 17th century, 18th century, it is so cold. And, you have your fire going, but it might burn out overnight. You are going to be cold all the time. You are going to be uncomfortable all the time. And it was very important for people at night in their beds, even though many people were typically sleeping in one bed, it was very important to be able to be as warm as you could. So the idea came about that instead of having like a blanket or a quilt or something like that, to make a bed rug would be much, much thicker, much, much heavier. Sounds impractical now, be coarse and uncomfortable, but those weren't the first things in people's minds then. The first thing was, let's be warm and survive the night. So bed rugs started to be made, and we don't know exactly when, but it could be that they're partly an American invention, at least the pile part on the rug, not the embroidered part, because that goes way back hundreds of years. But it is basically a rug that is cut to go on a bed. And in those days, beds were either four posters or at least had a footboard and a headboard, because the footboard and headboard would be holding up the crossboard. There wouldn't be like a box spring. It was the good night sleep tight. It was ropes. So there would have been a footboard and a headboard always. You couldn't get away with none or just the headboard, because that was what was holding the ropes that held your feather bed or whatever your mattress was made out of. So where was I going with that? So the bed rugs are always cut in such a way with a very distinctive design, flaps cut into the edges, right? Like gussets, if you sew clothing, so that it would fit around the bottom posts, because that was a must. Didn't have to fit on the top because you would untuck it, right? It couldn't be that way on top, but at the bottom you'd want it to fit really tight, really shaped to the bed, so that no drafts snuck up while you were trying to sleep. Probably still frozen, but at least trying to sleep. So, oh, Annette, great to see you. Always better late than never. Cheers, my dears. That gave me an opportunity to take a sip in Tennessee. Great to see you. Wendy, great to see you too. I'm sorry I missed that. Good to see you. I would want to walk on the bed rug. Well, you know, Cat's Gallery, that's a great comment, because often things that were used with limited textiles, limited supplies, limited everything in the early settlement period, people would often use rugs on the bed rugs on the floor, bed rugs on the table, rugs on the table. I mean, you would just be moving, you would not have a lot of things, right? You would have one or two, if you were wealthy, a few more things, but not a lot and not enough. So you would constantly be moving things like from the floor to the table to other places, because you didn't have other things to take out. So people did do that. They were like, and this is one of the questions that I want to pose tonight. It's something for us to think about. It's not something I have had time to research, and I won't have time anytime soon, but it's something to think about. Big picture, right? When I think about bed rugs as an article, now the idea of privacy was not a thing at this point, right? I mean, this privacy is not a thing. People are living in very small houses that they just built to survive. Life is very temporary until you are in a living situation in these early settlement days, where there will be businesses in town like a miller or somebody that can refine bricks or make bricks for you, or refine stone so that you have a really good house. You just do what you can do with wood, right? Because wood was not rationed, so you could use as much as you wanted. So you would do the best that you could, and it would be rough, right? And many people during these early days, you know, there's no glass. Like, who's going to make the glass, right? So you would be taking, like, if you had any paper, you would be waxing it with animal fat. So when an animal gets slaughtered, you would be using that fat to wax it, and just put a piece of paper in your open windows, because you would need the light, but you wouldn't want bugs to come in and out, right? So this was an early form of window, just waxed paper, because it would be a little transparent because it was all oily and greasy. I mean, you just did what you did, right? Nobody thought about this stuff. So privacy is not a thing. And typically these houses are so small, even for like average people, right? Because they're just starting out again. Often the family, and usually the family is sleeping in the same room. So, you know, the mother and father are typically sleeping in their bed, right? And probably producing more children right there in front of the children who are already in the room. And the children will typically be sleeping in another bed in the same room. So privacy is not really a thing. This is also the age of spooning and bundling. And I know I've talked about this before, but this is the practice of in early America, and no judgment, because life was different. And I don't know if they would have said difficult, right? Because life was difficult before, and that was one of the reasons they came in the first place. But this was the age of, for example, if there was a girl, people are pretty spread out, in particularly in northern New England, less in southern New England, really geared around rivers and the coast, right? But in northern New England, where everybody is quite spread out, if a girl is like courting a boy, vice versa, and he comes to her house. The only day that he could come to her house is like after work on Saturday, because people would work 6 days a week, and then you must go to church on Sunday, right? You must, because you came here for religious freedom, but you're not actually getting it. You're going to be in big trouble if you don't show up for church on Saturday somewhere. So boys would often travel quite a long distance, walking or on a horse, to visit a girl that they were courting. And when they did, it was a very routine and typical practice in New England in the 17th century to allow the boy to sleep in the same bed, because he would stay overnight. There would not be enough time for him to come and court and visit with the family. The idea would be he would stay over, and then he would go to church with the girl's family in the morning, and he would be allowed to sleep in the same bed. And in many families, they would put a piece of wood in between the two people. And in many families, they would put bells on the headboard and the footboard. In many families, they went even farther, and they tied bells or other kinds of shackle type things to legs and arms and things like that. But I don't have the statistic handy because I didn't know I was going to bring this up. But there is the statistic for the amount of girls who were pregnant in the 17th and early 18th century before they were married is absolutely shocking. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like a huge number, probably because of this practice. So my point is, privacy is not a big thing at this time. But I wonder, and I don't know the answer, is one of the reasons that there are so few bed rugs left, could it be at all because they were considered in any way a personal or private item? I don't know the answer, but I know that when we look at inventories from the same period, a lot of people had a bed rug, but we don't have them anymore. A lot of people had other kinds of rugs, still have those. A lot of other people had valances for the curtains, still have those. Wealthy people would have things like things for the table, linens for the table, other kinds of bedspreads for other seasons, still have those. It's the bed rugs that we don't have. Now, it could be moth damage. It could be general damage. It could be that they doubled as floor rugs and they got just so worn out it wasn't worth it. But the numbers are odd. They are super skewered. And while we have all these other textiles, including silks that were completely done centuries ago, we're seeing a lot more of those than we are seeing bed rugs. So my question continues to be, why? So anyway, this is something to think about. That was just something that occurred to me. Linda, great to see you. Shaped like footstools patterns, sort of. Let's look, and then you'll see. Oh, just 2 gussets on the bottom, so not 4 all the way around like you would have with a footstool. So I'm starting out looking at this book, and I'm going to share a bunch of photos with you, called America's Quilts and Coverlets by Carlton L. Safford and Robert Bishop. This is a beautiful book for people who like quilting and any kind of textile. This is one of these giant coffee table books from, what year was this? 1985. Actually 1980. That was the first publishing. Absolutely beautiful book for quilt lovers, for everybody. Many different subjects covered. And chapter 1 is actually the bed rug, which I think is smart because this is going to be like the earliest one that we need to refer to. Teddy, do you want to come say hi? Is that you? No cameo?
Yeah.
All right, no cameo. That's a yeah. That's a double negative. Yeah, no. So let me come over to our shared screen and let's look at some examples. I've got a lot of examples. I've got like 35 examples tonight. Oh, Linda, you're having heavy snow already. We're getting it tomorrow. I don't want to feel left out. We're going to get some tomorrow. Let me get rid of this. I'm fooling around here like crazy. And come on, you stinker. There we go. So that's image number 1. So this is what I mean by gussets. They are cutouts because this is lying flat. But as you can imagine, if this is draped over a bed, that bottom piece is going to be able to cover what would be the footboard. There's probably not really a footboard. It's just a little piece of wood, like a little 2x4 or something. So this piece is, it's a bed rug. It's signed and dated. Many of the photos that I'm showing you tonight are not super high quality. This book is 1980, which is fine, but some of these images are older. And as we already know, people do find images at museum, galleries, collections, etc. And then the items get lost. And we end up looking at an image that we don't know where this item is, and we haven't for 50 years. And you know what? This doesn't just happen to us in textiles. This is the story of my sister's life, who works at Yale, because she's a painting conservator. And I think I've told this story before, but I remember one time for Christmas, I had found in an antique store like a handful of old catalogs from like the 40s or 50s. And they included painting. And I thought, Santa can bring these in her stocking, right? Something else to open. And she opened them and she was flipping through them and she went, oh my God. Because at Yale, right, at the British Art Center, they had been looking for a painting that was in one of those catalogs. And she said, we didn't know where it was for like 100 years. At least we know where it was. It was one from like the 70s. She said, at least we know where it was like 50 years ago, which helped a lot. Right? So it doesn't just happen to us in textiles. It happens to everybody. People lose track of things. Things get sold at auctions. It's a big pig's breakfast. But this is not a great photo. This is a 1722 rug. The initials are those of Mary Avery of North Andover, Massachusetts. This is 92 inches by 88 inches. Right, so these are substantial. You need a lot of material to make these. It's not going to be wool, is it? Maybe a little bit of it is going to be wool. It's going to be like linsey woolsey and all these combos that people used to make back in the day of linen and wool. Any materials that they had, anything that they could home weave, anything they would use in these rugs, because all they wanted was as high a pile as they could get for as much warmth as they could get. Now, this next one is in color. Most of them are not in color. This one is a beautiful flame stitch, though. I mean, isn't that gorgeous? This one is a chevron or flame stitch design of the drops. I don't know what that term refers to. Probably indicates a European model. So this is from the Essex Institute, Massachusetts. So this was being held by a museum, at least when this photo was taken. But 1722. Oh, it's the same rug. Holy mackerel. It's the same rug. It's just in color. I'm going, wait a minute. This person has the same initials. I didn't get that before. Is that remarkable? I did not get that. So it's still going to be the Mary Avery rug of North Andover, and I guess it's at the Essex Institute, which I think possibly is now called the Peabody Museum. I'm assuming it's the same place. But you can see the amount of work that goes into something that's this size, and they have it draped over a bed that was typical of that period. So you can see that there is a footboard there, but it's not massive and it doesn't rise up to the level of the bed. It's just there to hold the ropes, good night, sleep tight, and that's all. So, I mean, this is a substantial time investment, materials investment, and piece of art, right? I'm going to talk more about the history of the bed rugs a little bit later. I just want to look at some images first so we can kind of get into it, ease into it a bit. So this is an 1809 bed rug, and this one is initialed MB. A well-developed design of carnations. This one was given to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York City in 1913, right? So somebody owned this and donated it to the museum. That's just what we want, because then we know that it's safe there, although it's probably hardly ever / never on exhibit. At least we know it's there. And as a scholar or even as a private person, you can always request from museums that you would like to see something and ask if it's possible for them to show it to you. You can always ask for that. There's no harm in asking. Never try, never win, right? Uh-oh. I think someone's... Are you coming in?
Yes.
Okay, hold on just a second. You're going to say a quick hi?
Yes.
Okay, make it quick. No crazies. No crazies.
Hey, boys.
All right. And girls. All right, let me shut that door. So we're all done. That was done. Check that off the list. Little sweetheart, but oh God. Okay, so, looking at these bed rugs, this particular book that I'm holding open now has a great, it has a great inventory in it. Not every book has this. It's something I'm not going to read because we'll doze off. But this book includes a study of 109 rural inventories for the years 1675 to 1775. That's a 100-year period that takes us almost to independence in 1777, right? And it's for Suffolk County, which is near Boston. And the person who, they've transcribed these rural inventories, the 109 households, and they include, let's see what the number is. She says, Wait a minute, let me see. I lost my place. Site six. Okay, so of 109 households at that time in that 100-year period, 65 of them include bed rugs. Now, that doesn't mean that there were only 65 out of 109 houses that had a bed rug. It just meant that the person who was doing the recording only um, felt that it was necessary 65 times to include a reference to it. Which brings me back to the question, would these have been considered personal private items, like almost unmentionable things like lingerie? I don't know. I just don't know. It just makes me wonder, right? Because what did the other 109 minus 65 people do in the winter when they were literally freezing to death? Thanks, Cat's Gallery. He loves to know that people said hi to him. So I won't read the references, but God, are they interesting. For example, in the lower rooms, one old rug, 2 Gs, one cradle rug, 2 Gs, cradle pillows, and 4, with an E at the end, cushions. And cushions is spelled with an I but no O. Adorable. I mean, this is just adorable, and that sounds patronizing. But it's so interesting to read through the inventory written in Old English, right? Because we had not yet switched to American spellings, right? We were still using the Queen's or the King's spellings. Right after 1776 in the war, at 1777, we start writing our own dictionary, our own cookbooks, and creating a national identity, which until that point obviously didn't exist because we were part of another country, just very far away. So these are all super interesting things that I love to look at, but probably not show worthy. Let's do some more look-ins at rugs with RUGGES or RUGGS. This is another beauty. This picture doesn't look so good on the monitor, but it is so, this is a real pretty rug, 97 by 87. It's signed Sarah Denny, Denny. It is undated. It is an original design. It is loosely constructed in warm beiges, yellows, and light reds. And this is at the Shelburne Museum, so we know that it's safe there. Oh, hi, Joan. Good to see you. Oh, I love being able to socialize in inappropriate clothing and makeup. That is so true. I have pajama bottoms on as usual. I just did the head as usual to try to be partly normal. This is another super beauty, isn't it? We're going to talk about design in a little while. This is dated 1819 and initialed NC. A conventional but well-planned pattern in blues and browns on a beige background. This is from the Henry Francis DuPont Winterthur Museum. We have talked about this museum recently. I'm going to have to do some research there too. Isn't this a beautiful design? This is really teetering on that Jacobean era of design that we've been talking about in the Pro McGown class. The other one's coming up on Sunday. If you're interested, it's not too late. What a beautiful design. You can see that this one is not cut. It is shaped, right? So this would be for a bed that doesn't have any kind of posts or where the footboard is so low that it's not an issue to just drape it, right? So this would be a little bit easier to make because there's less seams to finish. But you can see if you look at the bottom and you're a quilter, it is so much work, Aileen. It's crazy. I mean, it's unbelievable. At the bottom, that is clearly a quilt design, right? The sort of feather stitch design at the bottom. So the people who made these would certainly have been pulling from what they already knew, right? And this is going to be the beginning of our conversation about the design of these rugs. They're going to be pulling from what they already knew. Now, what happens if you were like a middle class or even lower middle class person that came from the Netherlands or came from England and you came over in the 17th century or early 18th century? How vast is your knowledge of decorative art, right? Can you even remember, when you think about it, even for me, when I go to a museum and I leave 5 seconds later, I think, what was that painting I liked so much? Could you even remember what a design specifically looked like? I think they had more of a sort of ability and facility to be able to remember because they were less oversaturated constantly with images and stuff. But at the same time, it would have been very hard to pull a design out of the air if you were not a creative person intrinsically, right? So they were pulling from things that they already knew, like if they had any plates that had a design on them, great. Quilts, right? If they had already done quilting and they understood that, or a little bit of embroidery and they were familiar with some of the stitches, that's what they would be pulling from. So there is a lot of sameness among the designs of these rugs because it's hard to come up with a composition plan and color plan, something that is this massive. Can you imagine? I mean, if you'd been sitting with a sampler on your lap, and that is the extent of your handcraft ability and experience, you're thinking about making something for a bed, this is really overwhelming. So we're going to talk more about design. We're going to look more at design. Let's look at the next rug we've got here. I'm just going to scroll up a little bit. This is tricky. This is tricky. This always scares me. Hold on. I'm trying to see which one I'm always scared. My hands are always shaking when I do this because I'm afraid I'm going to click on the wrong thing and something really bad is going to happen. I do not see this rug. Is this not crazy? There it is. Gone. Gone with the wind. So this is incredible. Look at this composition. This is incredible. This is a vase composition. There's something crazy going on with the vase. It almost looks like a genie lamp and it evolves into a vase. It's a little bit crooked, gives it certainly folk charm. 1807. 1807. That is so early. Initialed EL. This is 100 inches by 95 inches. A design with flowers arranged in an orderly fashion, a repetition of a carnation form, which is common among bed rugs. Now, besides the carnation, you see this kind of fluffy, again, like feather stitch pattern that they have snaking its way around all the carnations. For me, that's the thing. Carnations, great, right? They also look a little bit like thistles. Very nice round head, great for design. But that snaking thing, it eats up a lot of space. It allows you to change the value so you're not all similar values, right? You can get another color in there. Serpentine, lots of serpentine designs, absolutely. Interesting. And in the center, they probably used a little more color in the center because there were a few pieces that were fairly small and they could probably insert like smaller quantities of whatever they had. But so interesting, so interesting. So, we do not know these women's process, what they were pulling from, what they were using, how long they would plan, how long they would take. We just don't know these things because typically people would not keep diaries. Life was too fast paced and busy. Staying alive was busy and hard. Hi, Sandra. Good to see you. Sandra says, it's amazing to think these were all done probably without pencils or paper even. Absolutely. And I'm glad that you said that because to that point, there is nothing known about the transfer process. What we do know is that with these bed rugs, there are instances where there are like 10 or more in one small community of people having the same design. We know that historically that has happened, even if we can't account for all the rugs. And we know that that has happened because women share designs. So once somebody does one that's great, and the neighbor will say, I love it, right? So maybe that shoots the idea of it being a private thing down, although among women, I don't know. Hey, if the bed is in the living room, you're going to see it, right? Or maybe the rug has been moved onto the floor or to the table at that point. Who knows? How are we ever going to know? We can only speculate. I mean, it's such a charming thing to think about, but we just don't know. Another woman comes from next door and says, God, I love your carnations. And then her buddy's going to say, well, you can do them. But we know nothing about how they figured that out, what the transfer process would have been. There is no transfer method, right? The only method that we know of transferring anything to anything is a coal from the fire, drawing with it, right? So it seems like everything would have had to have been hand drawn. Because again, no known transfer method at this time in history. So particularly in America where we had less of everything, right? No store to sell you something that you could double as something else like a bar of soap or a piece of honey or wax that you might get some kind of temporary transfer possibility. Not going to happen at this point in history and in this place. Oh, thanks, Mom. Thumbs up. Give thumbs up to the videos if you love them. So that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. That was really important. And I love it when you make comments because it really moves the conversation along and I'm focused on what I'm doing. We need to make these bridges together. So this rug, for example, very different, very simple pattern, right? Dated 1783, initialed WRB, 90 by 87, worked on a heavy wool. So the backing is wool, which is not surprising because a lot of people wove in their house, right? Had a loom in the house or one that was shared. Like somebody had it and other people used it, right? So this was worked on a heavy wool in yarns of blue, white, and dark brown. So this would have been a community where there was spinning and weaving, right? So All we know about this, I'm going to show you a close-up in a second. I mean, this is at the Winterthur Museum, or was. Rows of lunettes that we now refer to as scallops, seashell, lamb's tongue. We can add lunettes. And the double cusped border on three sides is unusual. So, interesting. Let's look a little bit closer. Oh, actually, it's the next piece I have a close-up of. So, this piece was done in 1783. The next piece I'm going to show you is very similar, and it was done in, similarly, 1790. Initialed RG. Now, the last one was WRB. This one is RG for the Greer family in Norwich, Connecticut. The design closely resembles that of figure 8 in the method of sewing, and that's in quotes, sewing, because it's not embroidered. The wool yarns into place is also similar. We're going to talk about technique a little bit later. So here comes a close-up of that rug, and you're really seeing these yarns that they're describing. I mean, good Lord. Now remember, I took this picture out of a book, and the picture's not great to begin with, but good Lord, it looks like embroidery, right? It looks like embroidery. They're showing us the back here. The other side would have had something of a pile. Now, one of the ways, even with yarn, that you would get that kind of embroidery is with a reed, right? We have talked about this before. You're sewing your stitches on with a needle, not a hook, with a needle, and you have a little reed going through them. So you're sewing it over the reed, probably many stitches at once, right? And then you pull the reed out, and you've got all these loops, because this was a placeholder for all those loops, and that gives you pile. Sewing and making any textile with a reed for decoration or for warmth is a big thing, right? This should be part of our knowledge. It's a big thing. Oh, Lily, good to see you. Bargello look, absolutely, that is a Bargello look. Same with the chevron or the flame stitch, very Bargello look. Because with Bargello, we're talking about long stitch, right? Bargello is done with longer stitches, like some forms of crewel, like some crewel can be a long stitch, as opposed to a small stitch. You're not filling up one spot like with cross stitch or needlepoint and other kinds of embroidery. You're taking the thread right to a much further off place and doing a long stitch. That's the basis for Bargello, and that's the basis for a lot of these bed quilts. But with the bed rugs, you tend to see more dense stitching because you want more wool, because you want more warmth, because they are practical items. Let's look at the next one. Oops. How did I do that? Okay, so no, don't do that. Don't do that. Let's see. Oh, good, Gail. Good. Once in a while, I say something that is at least in keeping with the conversation, not a total detour. I'm usually off my chain. Now, this one is a good conversation starter too. This one is by Mary Foote. It seems that Mary Foote made more than one bed rug. It's signed and dated 1778, Connecticut. Many of these rugs that we're looking at will be from Connecticut. For whatever reason, this was a hot spot, and that brings me back to, we're seeing so many rugs in southern New England, not many at all in northern New England. Why are we seeing so many in southern New England? Is it because people are using them and neighbors are looking at them and saying, can you help me figure out how to make that? We're cold at night. It must be. What else could it be? That's the only thing that makes practical sense, doesn't it? It's not like being warmer in bed would be more popular in southern New England than northern New England, right? It's like when you drive down a street and you notice, in a place that you don't go all the time, and you notice, oh, isn't that funny? Two neighbors in a row have like the same decoration on their lawn, or two neighbors in a row have built like this same kind of porch and they have the same kind of furniture out front. And you think, isn't that funny? The neighbors must have looked at each other's stuff and said, I really like what you got going on. I'm going to do the same thing. Well, it's the same thing through history, isn't it? Somebody comes in and goes, I really like what you got going on in here. Oh, we're warm at night. Oh, I'd like some of that too. Can you give me a design for your bed rug? Well, sure. And then we get a bunch of bed rugs turning up in Connecticut, but none in Vermont, Maine, or New Hampshire. Strange. So this one is by Mary Foote. It's worked on linen homespun, so that means they made the linen at home, in yarns, which is what we're going to see. That's what they've got, in an all-over running stitch. The background is beige, and the design is done with blues. Now, this almost looks like, if you're an embroiderer, black work, right? I'm not gonna drill down into that tonight because that's a whole other conversation. But this looks like black work. It looks like Elizabethan embroidery. We might touch on that later when there's a similar rug, but let's just keep going for now. So this was in the crease of the book. I always hate that. Bed rug dated 1748, initialed FB. Worked on coarse linen with compact loops, again with yarn. This is at the Winterthur Museum. Another beautiful design, very, very simple. Super simple. I like the sort of bleeding hearts at the bottom of it. This makes this one for me very different. What a simple design for a piece that is 83 by 88. It's enormous. But if you think about it, just putting, right, if you folded this in half, it would be identical, right? So all you have to do is think of what half looks like. Putting that big center flower in, right, where later we'd be looking more at an oval or a medallion, just one center flower, and then just 3 flowers up and down the sides, connected by vines, right? Super, super easy. And then you get to the bottom and you realize, you know what, I'm going to put one more little bell type flower on the bottom. I'm hang some bleeding hearts down because I've still got room and I've still got some of that light color. How fun, right? How fun. So let's keep going because I want to get to some commentary too, but I want to look at as many as we can because there's not tons all in all. So the one below, bed rug, EH 1779, possibly Elihu Hyde of Chelsea, Vermont. Okay, so that would be the first Vermont that I've noticed. This is one of the earliest discoveries to be termed a bed rug. Wool yarn is sewn through the wool blanketing and the loops are sheared, except for the initials and the date. This is at the New York Historical Society, or it was in 1980. So what that means is they pulled these loops through high enough that it was possible to cut them, like a clipped rug, like a Waldoboro rug, like a latchhook rug. It has a cut pile. If you had very low loops, like a reed rug, like a reed stitch, you would not be able to do that, right? Because they'd probably pull right back through. You'd have to have a much higher pile to be able to do this trick. So this one is very different. Interesting. Not only Vermont, but early and also cut. This is a beauty. I love to see them in color. 1802, signed Felina McCall. Brilliant in its design and use of color. This is one of the finest examples of the hooked type of bed rug. Now, this is not hooked. Hooked is in parentheses because we don't have any sort of absolutely sure that it was hooked examples until 1860. So 1802 is a little bit too early, but in the 80s there was still confusion about technique, and it was often difficult to tell the difference between a hooked rug and a rug that was made with a needle in other styles. You see how well this one is made, not just in terms of the repeat carnation design, which is very William Morris, much earlier than William Morris. But if William Morris saw this, he would have like fallen over backwards, right? This also has gussets at the bottom, so this could accommodate posts or a cannonball type bed or anything that had the 4 posts at the bottom that stood up high enough that you would need to make these cuts. I think this is just an absolutely gorgeous rug, bed rug. Now, this is a neat example too. Again, this looks like Elizabethan black work to me. This is a bed rug signed Hannah Pearl, probably made in the 18th century in central Connecticut. Worked on a wool ground in a single stitch. It is solidly covered with stem stitching of 6-ply yarns in blues against cream. Remnants of the maker's name are there, but the area has been unpicked with traces remaining. So this was at the Wadsworth Athenaeum. I'm not sure if it's still there. And you know what? I don't know what rugs are going to be turning up for us at the Griswold House. There's only 2 examples that they show on their website. So if you're coming with me on that day, we're going to be surprised. We might see some of these rugs that we're talking about. Sandra says, a rug or 2 back, were you talking about locker hooking? No, not at all. Not at all. No, so locker hooking is, that's a great question, but locker hooking is when you're working on a much more open backing. Nowadays, locker hooking is latch backing, whatever gauge, it's got to be latch backing. It's got to be a very stiff backing, and these are cloth backing, so not stiff. And with locker hooking, what you're doing is you're pulling up a loop and you're running a thread under your loops. You're pulling up many loops and you're running a thread under them and you're leaving that thread there. So that thread or the yarn, right, in your locker hooking that's running underneath all of those loops, that stays. And because it stays, it locks the loops in place. And that's why it's called locker hooking. but not with these. These were done what's called reed stitch. So it's the same idea. You're doing loops over it, but you pull the pencil out. And then you've just got the loops, the empty loops, and they are not locked to the surface. So that's a great question. It's a similar technique, but you're pulling the thing that measures the pile out after every row of stitching. However many you can do, that will be dictated by the length of your needle and the thickness of your yarn, how many you can pull through. Trying to figure out the reed. Yeah, I hope that made more sense. Let me know if that made any more sense. But it's literally holding this on the surface of your material and stitching over it, and then there's your loop standing there, and because they're all there and they're all the same height, then you pull it out. And the reed is like a chopstick, right? So it's a reed, like a plant reed, like a little bamboo, or a little chopstick, and you just pull it out, and it's a tool. And we have these tools. And we know that's how they were used, and that's what they were for. So you would have your reed, and it would be right with your sewing stuff and all your other tools, because if this is the way that you sewed, if you relied on reed stitching to come up with an even pile, which a lot of people did, they liked this technique, they would always have their reed handy because they would use it constantly along with the sewing needle. I hope that made more sense. Good. So let's see, back to our rugs. Let's see what we got. Okay, so this is another pretty one. 1773, Molly Stark, wife of General John Stark of Derryfield, now Manchester, New Hampshire. So this is another northern rug. She's a very famous person, right? Very famous Revolutionary era character. The colors are somewhat faded, but this rug is still a beautiful concert of earth colors. Isn't that lovely? A concert of earth colors. This belongs to the Museum of the Society of the DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. Man, you know how I feel about that. I would give anything to have that sort of pedigree and to be able to be in that group. I think for me, this is the most spectacular, hey Heather, the most spectacular rug of the night. Partly because of the colors, the variety of colors. We have seen people absolutely going out of their way to do kind of monochromatic or duochromatic work, because that is the style, right? That is the style. This is a piece that appeals way more to me because it's super colorful. See, I have to take back what I said because this was found in Jericho, Vermont. Bedrug dated RP 1805 for Rachel Packard of Jericho, Vermont. Worked on wool homespun. The background is made of finely spun yarn, while the bright yarns making the design are somewhat coarser in nature. The loops of and again, she has it in quotes, hooked design are short. This belongs to the Henry Ford Museum. So this is not, I just want to emphasize, this is not hooked, right? This is done with a needle. But at this time, scholars and academics were not making this distinction. And at the end of the day, really, who cares? But I mean, we might as well call it what it is. Not actually hooked, done with a needle, but still absolutely beautiful and very much in the style of things that we look at now. Look at the lamb's tongues, 2 rows of lamb's tongue. Look at this beautiful Jacobean, cruel sort of flower action happening. It is super organic. They have a very geometric quilt type design in the center. I mean, this is just gorgeous. This seems very organic to me, very free flowing. Like, okay, let's put some berries in. You got room for berry? Here's room for berry. How about one more rainbow flower? Let's do it. There's room. Any more colors? Few more colors. Let's outline. Feels like that to me. I love the feel of this piece. I think this is an extraordinary piece. And okay, so what have we got here? Bed rug, unsigned and undated. Can you imagine after all that work? Can you imagine somebody was unpicking that other one? I mean, my word. Little is known about the origin of this example, but the well-planned design indicates that it was created by an experienced craftsman, it says. This is at the old Gaul Museum, like prison, Gaol. I don't know where that is or if that still is. Beautiful, beautiful design to be unsigned. I'd like to give the credit to someone. You know, this is one of the few areas, this is a point I should have made at the beginning, this is one of the few areas of interior decoration in this period of American history that things are signed. right? Not signed with somebody's name, but signed with initials in most cases. That is extraordinary. And this, again, for me, makes this a more personal item because women did not sign stuff. They just didn't. If you were at school and you were being told a little bit later, like later on in the late 18th, early 19th century, if you were at like a girls' school where girls would go, right? Boys went to real school, girls went to school to do embroidery. If you were sitting there doing a sampler, you would put your initials on it because that's part of the exercises to practice letters, and that's how the teacher would know that it was yours. But with other stuff that belonged to the home, you did not take your time. What a liberty it would be to put your initials on something, right? These things have initials on them. I think that's extraordinary. For me, that puts them in more of a private domain. I don't know. I like this idea. I don't know. How do you sign and date your rugs? That's a good question. I forgot to sign and date this one. I only started, Linda, that's a great question because we're all supposed to be doing this. I only started one rug ago. That's how bad I am. When I used to paint, I signed all the time, but I don't do it anymore. This is how I do it. And I think this is a great question because however you do it with initials or whatever, it's fun to find a way that you like to sign your piece that you think is number one, reflects your personality, and number two is artistic and maybe a little bit different. So my name is Deanna David, right? DD. So I had a lot of jokes about that because I have big boobs and Dunkin' Donuts and Dungeons and Dragons, and there's lots of things called DD. So this has always been a struggle, but they're good letters for making a design. So I go like this. This is the way I've been signing my stuff lately. I just did it with a pencil, but I have the two D's back to back, right? It's off center here, but like one D facing this way and one D facing that way, like an oval with the split with the DD. So you wouldn't know that that was a DD. And maybe it's a bit high horse and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But when I thought of it, I thought that's really cool because the reason that I haven't signed my rugs is number one, I don't feel super precious about them, and I should. I should, but I don't. And I often hate them by the time I'm done. Um, and I just don't think about it. But part of the reason I don't is because this is awful to say out loud, but I often find it distracting to see letters. Now, it is important, of course, but it hasn't been super important to me thus far. But with that little creation of doing the circle that looks almost like a link on a chain or a belt or something, having my two initials fit that way, I thought I actually like this because it looks like a design element and it doesn't look like, oh, it's me. Guess what? Guess what's by? It's me. Guess who made it? Me. So I felt better about doing it this way for myself. But everybody has to do it in whatever way. Yeah, exactly. Tag on the back. But as far as being part of the composition, I haven't done that. And because I sell the patterns and I often show the patterns, I don't like to show it for myself with initials because then people would think, "What's the DD?" If they don't know. So I encourage you when you're feeling creative or you're just sitting there, your post-it notes or whatever, think about ways that your initials would fit together, right, in a cool way. And then of course there are some people who sign their rugs in a different way. I think about Mary Jo. What's her husband's name? They did the book on tavern signs. Gimber, Gimber, right? Oh, I don't have the husband's name on the tip of my tongue, but I think it's Mary Jo Gimber, and her husband make rugs together. But when Mary Jo makes them, she always uses as her initial, as her signature, a small face, almost like an early emoji, like just a face with a smile, always the same. No, it's like a half moon face, right? It's like a half moon popping out of somewhere, and that's how she signed. And everybody's different. Magdalena Briner, Eby often signed with the red cherries, the choke cherries coming out of like a bird's mouth, or different people, different ways. So that's a great question, and it's something to think about, right? It has to be something that's special or meaningful to you. It doesn't necessarily have to be initials, but you should tag it on the back because think of the trouble that we're having now when we keep trying to attribute rugs to special people and we find a special rug and we don't know who it belongs to, and it was somebody's great work and it was their time and their talent, and there's so many rugs that we can't attribute that are original designs, not commercial designs. So make sure that you tag it. But yeah, it's a very personal thing deciding if you want to sign it and how you're going to sign it. That becomes part of the fabric of the composition. I did mine in footstool, your pattern, Deanna, in the center corner motif. Yeah, I mean, that's a great idea, putting them into the center too. it's on one hand, when I think about Mary Jo and putting that face on, one of the things I love about her rugs is when I see them, I don't know if it's her or her husband who hooked it, and I'm always looking for that face. And it's a Where's Waldo, and it's super fun um, to look, right? It's super fun. It's like a little game, a puzzle within the thing. But then there are great ways to work initials very formally into a composition, and they do belong there. It's just a feeling that I have, right? Great question. And with these bed rugs, they are prominently signed. Sometimes in like the field of flowers, sometimes just a big circle and the initials bang right in the circle. Very visible, very prominent. So let's see. Let me keep going. I think my mouth is running a little bit too much tonight. Um, oh, you know what? Nope. Wait a minute. Naughty times. So hang on. This rug I was just about to talk about. This obviously has some more than a little damage. 1779 and signed Amy Williams of Connecticut. The ground of the coverlet is coarse wool homespun and the entire surface is covered with satin stitch in multicolored wools. So the reason, and you see at the bottom of this one how it is signed hugely with her name, hugely, in like a nice early font, right? A book font, right? This would be a header font. But also, I have a close up coming up next. Look at the amount of sort of checkerboard she did with stitching. Do you see? I don't know if you can see my cursor, but the flowers at the bottom left and up on top on the side. I'm going to pull up a closer up close up. This is really different, right? She did this with a needle and thread or yarn, and she did stitches, and it's a beautiful checkerboard, a design within a design. This is the only of the bed rugs that I found that has this particular thing. I was going to say gimmick, but it's not. It's just her style. I don't know what brought her to this, but I think this is absolutely extraordinary, right? Mackenzie Childs, hundreds of years earlier. I think that is just beautiful. Now, this is something else, right? This is just truly something else. This is like the all-time glam rug. Now, this is not a rug per se. This is a coverlet because it's a lighter material. I don't need to show it. I just felt that I had to show it because this is a different season. This is not for warmth, but this is still an embroidered bed rug. Oh, Karen from Cross Stitch Patterns, that might be where she's getting that from because cross stitch starts a little bit earlier in the early 17th century. So that could well be. That could well be. That's a great thought. Checkerboards, though, now that I think about it, well, wait a minute, let's see this thought through. So cross stitch starts right at the beginning of the 1600s, as far as I know, as far as I remember. But when we think about painting, I'm thinking about Vermeer, but when I think about earlier painting too, like Italian painters, you often see checkerboard floors, right? You often do. So that would also be a great reference. I don't know the history of the chessboard for that version of a checkerboard, but man, that's a whole subject that we could research, the history of the checkerboard, right? Because knowing what a checkerboard is and beginning to use it as a pattern are two different things. So I'm thinking about floor cloths that are from the same period, right? Early American settlement period, that are basically heavyweight kind of canvas cloth, cottony cloths, right? Not like an open weave, but a tighter weave, more tightly woven that were painted, right? So these are not super for warmth, but they keep the dirt, which would be coming right up onto the floor, if there even is a floor, they'd be keeping the dirt at bay. So floor cloths were extremely helpful, and those were often painted in a checkerboard pattern in early American portraits. So portraits going back to not the 17th century, but the early 18th century, maybe late, very late 17th century, more 18th century. I can picture seeing that checkerboard design. So it could be either one. It's so hard to know. For all I know, there were China patterns in the Netherlands or in England that had checkerboard designs incorporated into them. I don't know, but there's so many sources, so many ways that people could have seen that used as a decorative design. Because if you use it as a chessboard, it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone's going to think, I should have had a V8. Why haven't I been using this as a design? People don't think like that. It's just because it exists doesn't mean it's going to be used in that way. So interesting conversation here. Someday we have to start talking about, when we are on these history benders, the history of wallpaper, because the history of wallpaper will parallel more closely the history of textiles in terms of design, and it will be even more dynamic because what you could do with wallpaper is basically a fast version or a printmaker's version of a painting, right? Because you're using paint and you're using blocks that you have carved in a series of sort of stencil designs and just applying paint. You can do the same thing multiple times. But that will more closely parallel the history of textile decoration because the options are there. What you can do with textile in this period of American history is sew it on because weaving in the early settlement periods is not advanced enough to be able to get fair isle or any kind of decorative or any kind of pattern from weaving. Weaving is just homespun. You're just doing back ends. You're just doing basics. If you're going to add decoration, you got to do that with a needle, a thread, or some kind of a tool, a hook. There's choices, but not a lot. So let me come back up here. Wait a minute. Man, I think I need to go to a 3.5 with my glasses. This is crazy. This is a close-up of that rug. It is just exquisite. It has a bit of an Asian feel. It's partly the flowers. It's partly the sweep of the trees. It is just, it is so exciting, this piece. It is a stellar example of a textile, and that dates from the year 1800 even. I thought that was really spectacular. I'm just flipping through. Let me see what our next image is. I want to be able to link up, and then I want to do a little bit of text. Yeah, this is a real pretty one. I didn't want to skip this one. Opposite and below. This is embroidered. This is another lightweight one. This is all embroidered. 1745. I mean, my word. So, you know what? Let me get out of there, and let me come to my other sources, because I wanted to show you some others. It's hard to leave this book, because this book has just been a real gem. And it does cover, in crazy detail, it covers embroidered bed spreads and bed rugs, coverlets, quilts. Oh, wait a minute. I've got to show you this. This is really pretty. True artistry. Absolutely. Oh, God. All right. Let me see what we got here. Am I going to be lucky? Oh, my gosh. I am lucky. I can't believe it. This is the one that I'm looking at. So, I mean, this is a wool bed cover. So this is not a bed rug, but this is a wool bed cover. So it's appliqued. This dates to 1800. Quilted wool bed cover with plain woolen woven applique in strips and embroidered in crewel. Many different kinds of stitches, outline, flat, cross, seed, satin, and buttonhole are all used. This is also at the Winterthur Museum. So the designs are not typical of early crewel. Let's look a little bit closer up. This is interesting for us, those of us who are interested in the history of design, right, and composition. This is truly applique. They're not doing a lot with applique. They got a lot of fancy stitches going, right? There's very few pieces that are introduced. They're doing most of the design work with stitches, right? That might indicate a lack of supplies. You see in the second row, the middle row, the leaves are in white. So you see in the flower, there's some flowers down below that are in white. A few leaves up top. The one on the top left has less actually appliqued, and more of that color change is happening just with the thread from doing the stitching part. But look at these little basket designs, how odd they are. Usually when you see a composition with a basket design, you see one stem coming up in the middle and then like a profusion, just a fan of heavy flowers on top. These are very different because you're not seeing any center flower. You're seeing almost like legs, right? It almost looks like human legs going up to a point where it breaks off into stems, and then you have the opportunity to place lots of flowers. But it's almost like this person, they knew about the one stem, but they were trying a lot of different things. I think that's so interesting, trying different kinds of baskets with different kinds of stitches, trying different kinds of flowers. I think this shows such a neat sense of experimentation, right? It's so different. Just flipping through and making sure I'm not missing. Oh, wait a minute. There's another one I've got to show you here that's really good. I am really late tonight. Isn't this one pretty? This is more of a quilty one. So this one dates to 1860. This is the Civil War era. But I just had to show it because I know there's a lot of quilters out there. This is not a bed quilt. This is a quilt, but it's in the form of a bed quilt, right? So it's still to fit an older style of bed. But I thought that this is super, super pretty with some Pen Dutch motifs in it, right? Really, really pretty. So let me get out of here and hang on. I'm going to come, wait a minute. I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to come back to you. And oops, I did it again. There we go. Nope. Man, if you could see this program, you would feel my pain. I'm just going to flip through and make sure. There's so many things I want to show you in here, but I think we got to keep rocking for tonight. There's lots of stuff for us to talk about. So much. How can I not show you this one? This one is ridiculous. This one is just like the pièce de résistance. No, sorry, spoiler. There we go. I mean, this one's crazy. This is actually bigger than it looks. This is a massive applique coverlet from 1870. Hannah Riddle of Woolwich, Maine. Woolwich, maybe Maine. Made of felt with strips of blue velvet at the top and bottom. There is no apparent theme for this multitude of designs, just Mrs. Riddle's creative imagination running riot. This coverlet won first prize at the Woolwich Fair in 1870. I think this is unbelievable. And let me show you, I'll let you look for another minute. The amount of motifs that are in there is just absolutely staggering. This reminds me of the Caswell carpet, much more colorful. Much more colorful. I mean, this is just crazy. This is just crazy. We'll have to look at this in more detail another day, right? So, and I just want to show you in terms of shape, it does have that bed rug shape. That riddle one that we just looked at. Amazing. So all of those I found in this amazing book, America's Quilts and Coverlets. It is dense, it is heavy, it is academic, it is colorful, it is the perfect coffee table book. Are you aware of this magazine, the Clarion? Goals. That's right. That's right. This hasn't been published for years, but this was a wonderful folk art magazine, and they often have hook drugs and they often have other things. They had this image that I wanted to show you. It's hard to find bed rugs because there's not a huge amount of them out there. And why am I seeing that when I want to see? Nope. There, that's what I want to see. So this I found in a Christie's ad, the auction house. In Clarion Magazine, Spring Summer 1986. I just thought this was so beautiful. This is from 1741, Canterbury, Connecticut, a fine wool bed rug by Hannah Baldwin. Just thought this was beautiful. It's like a lot of the ones that we've seen, but in color, right? So interesting. In 86, that was out there to be seen. Now I'm going to switch to this book, and I want to do a little bit more, just nail the subject down. Needlework in America. This writer is... I just ordered one of her other books just now. She seems to have 3 books. Needlework in America. The author is Virginia Churchill Bath. She had this book. She had a book on lace, and she had a book on embroidery. And I just ordered the book on embroidery off of eBay. There was only 1 copy. So I got it because I thought, let me look at it. I want it. Let me see. It might be on Abe Books or on Amazon. I didn't look. I just saw one on eBay and I took it because I want to share it with you on the show, particularly if there's something interesting for us there. This book, Needlework in America, is an over-the-top book, and part of what I love about it is this author is looking at these textiles, and she's not just looking at them with her eyes. She wants to actively translate them into line drawings. So she is often showing you line drawings in the margins that are extremely helpful for identifying the design, because a lot of it's obscured and a lot of these things are damaged. I really like her style, and I'm anxious to see whether the other books that she's done, I didn't get the lace because that didn't really hit me too well, maybe in the future. I'll see if I like the embroidery one, and I'll report back and share that book with you, just to make sure this wasn't a one-hit wonder, because this book is over the top. Needlework in America, and this is from 1979, so the year before the other one. Interesting. Well, we know from looking at magazines from the late 70s and early 80s, needlepoint was such a huge thing at that time. I mean, everybody was doing handcrafts, but there was a lot of needlepoint. There were multiple magazines just devoted to needlepoint alone. But what I like about this book is many of these images are in color. So, having said that, let's look at a few more, and we'll get a more sort of full picture of what we would be looking at if we were living in, for example, 1802. 1802 bed rug made by Felina McCall of Lebanon, Connecticut. This is part of the Wadsworth Athenaeum. I have a feeling this is one that we're going to see at the Griswold Museum, because they did show one that had this kind of color scheme. I think it might have been this. Again, this is actually one that we saw earlier. This is one we saw earlier. I didn't recognize it, and it didn't have a name attributed to it. Excellent. It just had the initials PM, but this book knew that it was Felina McCall. This is the same one because look at that little vase. Remember I said that looks like a bit like a genie lamp that evolved into something? This is the same rug. This is the first carnation one we saw. This is the one that I think we remarked that it had all that serpentine stuff going on, but here it is in color. I did not know. Is this the one that I said this looks like a William Morris design? That it could be. No, I think this is the earlier one. But regardless, it's a carnation rug. It is beautiful, and now we can attribute a name to it. So that's really nice. And let me come up and show you the next one. These are all from this current book. Another beautiful color scheme. Again, they liked the monochromatic rugs. Hannah Johnson, 1770. They think that this rug is 17. Well, it is 96. It says it right at the top. She died in 1818, and she was born in 1770, so she was 26 when she made this. This is at the Art Institute of Chicago. It was a gift of the Needlework and Textile Guild. Let me see what the next one is. I don't have a ton more of these to show you, but I have a little more talking to do if you're interested. Let me just find my point in the book where that one is at. I got lots of notes going on, as you can imagine. Let's see what we got. Oh, this is a beauty. 1805 Greenfield Museum, which is the Henry Ford Museum. Rug made by Rachel Packard, 1805. Isn't that gorgeous? That is another gorgeous rug. You know what? I think we saw this one too. No, we didn't. We just saw another rug with it. No, what? Yeah, I think we did see this one. Didn't we see this one? Maybe we saw this one in color, actually. Because remember I said 2 rows of the lamb's tongue and then a little bit of a quilt motif in the middle? I think that's the same rug. I think so. We'll have to look back and see. This book has, like the other book, a very complete history of the bed rug, but I thought somehow that this one read better to me. It's probably just a personal thing, but I'm going to read you little bits of it because it really contextualizes the idea of this bed rug. A rug in the 17th century was a heavy cover for a bed, right? So the word rug they're using in this context, not as a floor rug because people just didn't have them. But the bed rug is going to be the first rug that we use this word for, the first time that we're using this rug here, the word. Later, after the word began to be used for floor coverings as well, the covers were called bed rugs. Okay, so then the things on the floor became known as rugs, and then they started saying, just to qualify, the things on the bed were then named bed rugs. But until then, they were just called rugs. A term not unknown in earlier years, but one not frequently used until 1922. So she's saying until 1922, we weren't really making the distinction of a bed rug from a rug. And they're trying to be more careful around this time because Antiques Magazine is coming out around this time. And if you remember in the 1920s, the then editor of Antiques Magazine was a rug collector. So he probably was one of the people behind this sort of driving force to nail down the language a little bit better so that we really understood what we were talking about. And this writer makes several references to, for example, in an edition of John Fletcher's play, The Night Walker. I don't know if this is a sleepwalker. Oh, subtitled The Little Thief. Okay, so there's some naughtiness going on here. Printed in 1640, we read, and here comes a quote, "I wished him then get him to bed, and they did so, and almost smothered him with rugs and pillows." So this must be a wealthy person's house because he's getting into bed, and there's a bed rug over him, and there's a bunch of pillows under his head. So that is 1640 reference to the bed rug. And then he says, there's also, this is the kind of scholarship I live for. In the same vein, the Reverend Nathaniel Ward of Ipswich, Massachusetts, wrote in The Simple Cobbler of Agawam, this is a book or a play that came out in 1647, quote, to speak to light heads with heavy words were to break their necks. To clothe summer matter with winter rug would make the reader sweat. Very dense. But using the word rug in terms of a bed rug, being covered with it, spelling R-U-G-G-E. These are these early references we really need to nail down the chronology. The author also mentions that we aren't using the word carpet. We will start to use the word carpet and it will be spelled with an ET, like we spell it now, but also with an IT, carpet. So still confusing, right? These are things that we can come back to. I'm not going to get heavy into some of this reading because it's fantastic, but it is getting late. Let me see if there's anything I really wanted to bring to you that I thought really, okay, this is fairly important. There is a precedent for the pile bed rug. In fact, the term is related to the Old Norwegian word rog, which is ROGG, which means tufts or shagginess, and the dialect of rucha or roka, which signifies a coarse coverlet, right? So we've heard this many times that the origin of the word rug comes from Scandinavia. Scandinavian colonists brought pile rugs to America at an early date. And in the 17th century, they seem to have been commonplace. Originally, such rugs were striped or plain, but patterned. So they're going to start talking about that, embroidered rugs and piled rugs. So the point that the author, I think, is making is that while there isn't a bed rug, we are seeing Scandinavians bring over as early as that textiles with a high pile. And it's all going to come together pretty quickly at this point, isn't it? Because this all makes sense. All you need to see is the prototype of something, and then you go, I think I got that. I think I know how I can do that with simple tools. So this is all wonderful, interesting history, and a lot of it. They talk about how wool is typically used as the foundation for making bed rugs, and that's what we have found too tonight. Most of these are made from wool. And they're talking about the different forms of embroidery, because this is what people knew. They go into the conversation on thrums, which we have had many times. And on the next page, they are showing me another pretty rug that I want to show to you too. Let's put this one down. That one is pretty. Is there another pretty one coming? That's the same rug, but in a different color, right? But not in color. That's the same rug. But you know what? No, it's not the same rug. So they're making the point with this rug. It's the same design, but here it comes. They're making the point with this rug. The question arises whether designs were handed down from mother to daughter in the same manner that produced the traditionalism of European folk arts, etc., quilts. They are talking about, on the next pages, quote, the nearly identical designs of a number of bed rugs obviously have a common source, but their variations are intriguing. Comparing the bed rugs, it is necessary to separate workmanship from drawing. Naturally, subtleties of drawing have been obscured by the high pile, by the long pile. So however they are transferring or drawing freehand, he's saying it's very hard to tell the difference in the way that it was drawn because the pile is so high. So that's completely obscured. But it's obvious when you're seeing the same design multiple times, but done by different people. And then he starts the conversation about how is the design transmitted from one person to the next. And what sources are they using? Where are the designs coming from? Let me show you this one because I think he's going to say something about this. And then we're going to end shortly because I'm getting tired. And I bet you are too. I'm almost to the end of my pickies here. So, oh no, that's not the right one. No. I think we saw that one too. So I don't want to come back there again. Let me see. Let me just show you this one. We saw this one in the last book. There's only so many bed rugs, right? So we're not going to get like endless. But the one right there, that's the one that I said it's like black work, like Elizabethan black work. That's the Mary Foote rug from Connecticut, Colchester, and that's the one on the Henry Ford Museum. He says, curiosity about the design process naturally arises. Patterned flat fillings of various sorts are also seen in block printed lining papers. So papers that you would use to line everything, right? Like trunks, right? Document boxes, anything in the 17th century you would want to line with paper. That's just what people did. Whether the paper suggests designs for the embroidery or the embroidery suggested designs for the papers, it is an unresolved question. Possibly designers of the period simply worked out patterns for both. So he's saying it's a weird coincidence that when you look at paper from that period, decorative paper, I don't mean documents or anything that's written, but decorative paper, like something that would line a trunk or a dresser or whatever, those designs are very similar to these designs. And he's saying, which came first, the chicken or the egg? This is another conversation. It's just so, for me, it's so interesting. And then I want to end with this because I think this is really cool and this helps us visually. But I'm on the wrong screen, so that's not so good. So this author, who I truly, really, I'm just loving this book, Virginia Churchill Bath, she's showing us the way to make a running stitch for cut pile. So this is, I'm sorry, this is the second one. Let me show you the first one first. You know, they aren't necessarily like the best illustration. They're great illustrations. It's still a little tricky to see what she's doing. But what she's doing is she's using a needle to pull up these very long loops. She's not using a hook, she's using a needle, and she's pulling up long, long loops. Thank you, Karen. And then when she's pulled up a loop, right, we're seeing here the next stage. She puts her needle in and she pulls some more through, and she's probably going to pull through many loops on one go so she doesn't keep pulling up and down. It's going to save time if she pulls up many at once. And for example, the author of this book starts to work on a piece. I still have this piece showing. There we go. This is very hard to see. This is a black and white photo in an older book, but you can see that the author of this book, has drawn a design, and she is using this technique, those two pictures that I just showed you, to do long stitches. And this is what she's doing, right? This is how it looks as it evolves. And you can see from the drawing, which is very crisp, that as it goes along, it's less crisp, right? It's like, just like the author was saying, the drawing does get obscured because the pile is so high. And if we're talking about a bed rug, what's the point of having a bed rug if the pile is not super high? Because it's not going to be super warm. I mean, if you go to bed in the winter, you want a nice thick quilt. You don't want a satiny coverlet, right? That doesn't make any sense. Same thing for them. They were just making the quilt, making the bed rug, and it didn't have stuffing, it didn't have filling or batting or any of that. The warmth of the rug was based on the height of the pile and as many stitches, as densely as they could get those stitches in to create a very heavy, heavy rug. It's just an interesting moment in history. I just love this conversation of bed rugs because the bed rugs are the sort of grandmother to the hooked rug. As soon as people are making these bed rugs for warmth and for practicality, and then as soon as life kind of stabilizes, and the timeline for that life stabilizing thing will really depend on where you live and what your life is like, right? Whether you are safe, whether you are in a temporary living situation in a village that is getting built up and you feel like you're going to roost there for all of your days, then people can start thinking about, well, let's cut down some more firewood. I know how much wood I need this winter. I know I'm going to have enough wood to keep the house warm and we're not going to die of the cold. And I know how much wood I need to cook to get our food done so we're not going to starve. And once I figure those things out, right, it's something you got to figure out. It's not something you're going to know in your first years. Over time, you got to kind of take a survey of the years and figure out what's going right, what's going wrong. You got to try to separate superstition, right, which was a big problem, people being superstitious about things instead of practical. Easy for me to say now in retrospect with 2020, hindsight. But when people are just superstitious about, well, we didn't freeze to death this year because when I left my house every morning I touched the two fence posts like this and nothing bad happened. And then the next winter is a terrible winter and it wipes the family out. As soon as we got away from that kind of thinking and people started to say, well, this is what I need, this is what I've got, we're prepared, we're ready, and we're going to make it, then they could start thinking about things like, how about a rug for the floor? Wouldn't that be nice? It'd be extra warm, right? Our feet being cold are not going to kill us, but it would be extra warm. And maybe you have time to do it now because we got some other stuff figured out, right? Oh, Barbara, thanks for going down this rabbit hole. It is fascinating. I know it's not for everybody. I was looking at how many people were on. I don't know if anybody left us because it's not a conversation for everybody. It was very heavy history tonight. So if you don't enjoy that as much, I'm sorry. Sometimes we do really colorful, inspirational stuff. Other times I do like to do the history stuff because history is what really anchors this craft. And I like talking about the things that led up to rug making, and particularly rug hooking. And certainly this is the thing that is right before it. So this is important on our timeline to know about and to think about these kinds of designs that would later become popular with Pearl McGown in the 20th century. These beautiful, what we call crewel designs, because of cruel needlework, but they really are Jacobean designs, right? Based on the Jacobean period of art and design and drawing. So that's what we're seeing. That's what we saw tonight. All of those designs, with no exceptions, except maybe that last one, the Riddle bed cover, that was more like a crazy quilt because it was so over the top. That was the one that kind of stands out. But all of the others were done in a similar design. So much to know and so much to read about, and so much fun. And as I say, the bed rugs exhibit is what really inspired me to go down this rabbit hole, because I want to be prepared in my mind to go, even though it's a ways away, April 22nd. I'm excited to go. And I never heckle or anything like that. And I'm not, they asked if I wanted to guide, and I didn't want to guide because I want to know what he or she has to say. And I want to hear that because it might fill in some gaps I have. And I won't speak up at all because I just don't do that. I was a tour guide and I know what it's like to be heckled. But I want to do as much research as I can from my own head in the meantime. And so I can layer the ideas that I have and the things that I find out in the meantime when I'm looking at those bed rugs. Because it might be, I just turned 50 and I hope not, but we do not see these bed rug exhibits a lot. We see them like 20, 30 years apart. And it's a real gift for one of them to come around again. So I don't expect to see it soon. Rare as hen's teeth, right? So I'm very excited to go. And for those of you who aren't nearby and are not going to come to bed rugs with us because you just can't, know that I'm going to document it like crazy. And I also asked David today if they had created any kind of a little periodical for the gift shop for people who are interested specifically about this exhibit, right? The other ones we know about. They're in these two books, and they're showing us repeats because there's not a lot of bed rugs. But those bed rugs, I want to know if there's a playbill that goes along with those bed rugs. And he said yes, but not yet. He said they might have it out in the store by the time we get there in April, but they will be coming out with one. And I'll stay on top of that too, because I'm adding that to my library. I want to see those images, and I want to see what kind of scholarship they've done and what they have learned about these bed rugs, because I know some of these will be in the exhibition because there's not a lot. So we are going to see some of these in person. But I want to know what they've learned about these bed rugs since 1980 and 1979, right? So I'll find all that out and I'll bring it home to you when the day comes. But it, again, is like still a ways away. Nancy, oh, I'm so glad. I loved it with you too. I love these cozy nights, I love doing cozy Friday nights. It's a long episode, but I think I'm going to have my drink and go down, and I'm going to work on this guy and try to solve that problem of getting that background done in the patterned material so it looks less like a Mexican mola, which I love. It's just not what I was doing. And just so you know, we're getting our snowstorm tomorrow, and on Sunday, I'm teaching penny rug making at Madison Wool in Madison, Connecticut. I think that's a 2 or 3 hour thing. You can't, I'm not going to get you going, but I've been dyeing thicker wool like crazy because you can use quite thick wool for penny rugs. And I have my cutter, my Sistrix cutter with the penny thing. I'm going to cut a ton of those. I've been dyeing some unbelievably beautiful, very unexpected colors for penny rugs. I got some traditional patterns and stuff, but I did some wacky dye baths with color, like modeled colors and stuff, that I think will really add to the excitement of the penny rug. So people can choose between making a real traditional one or one that's crazy colors. And I know the group that often goes to that shop where I teach once a month, and they are crazy people. So I have a feeling that they're going to all go for the crazy colors. I'm making sure I have plenty of materials. I'm doing that on Sunday during the day, and on Sunday night, I will be sitting right here in this chair for Zoom for those of you who are taking the Pro McGown class. It is the same class as Wednesday. I'm doing the same thing with the same exercises, but I will be live with you on Sunday if you're taking that. And it's not too late to sign up. You can even sign up Sunday. I'll send you all the material, and it was a heavy sketching class, but I think it was extremely productive. So I hope to see you then over the weekend. And otherwise, yeah, me too, Kirsten. I love the different topics, and I love the breadth of it, and I love bringing it back to the center, and I love posing those bigger questions when I can. Give us things to think about. I feel like I jinx you when I say it, but if you wake up at 3:15 every morning like I do, it's nice to have, instead of thinking, God, I wonder if I have cancer, if I'm getting cancer, things, big thoughts like that. I'd much rather think, God, I wonder why there aren't too many bed rugs around. I wonder what happened to them all. Why would people destroy them? Why would people hide them? Why would people get rid of them? I'd much rather have that kind of thought in my head rattling around. Oh, good to see you. I'm just signing off, Christine, but I'm so happy to see you. It was a good episode on bed rugs, Rugges. So I hope to see you over the weekend. And if I do, it'll be in person in Madison, or else it will be on Zoom on Sunday night. And otherwise, I'll be back with you on Monday. Remember to check out that Valley Forge braiding that I talked about at the beginning of the show, the Braid Guild. For that money, what a lot of programs they're doing. And it seems like such a great organization. Please let me know if you belong to stuff that might be interesting for me. I am always looking to support historical groups, anybody that does anything, particularly textile or historical. It's all meaningful, it's all part of the same story. I love it all, and I might not know about it. So feel free to write me at ribboncandycooking@gmail.com if you belong to something or if you know of something that could use a little bit of publicity and bringing to the front for a few minutes so other people can go check out the website and see what kind of programs they have to offer, right? Having multiple programs in 1 month like Valley Forge is a remarkable accomplishment. They're not a huge group by any means. That is remarkable. That means people are working their tails off to bring interesting and inspiring programming, and that is definitely worth something. So hey, I will see you all soon. Christine, I'm sorry I'm logging off as soon as you log on. I will see you all soon, either this weekend or Monday. Have a great weekend. Be productive and happy. Keep the news in mind, but don't get as overwhelmed as I've been getting. It's so heavy, isn't it? Oh, hopefully things are better on Monday. Prayers for the people in the Ukraine, to say the least, and everybody in all of those Baltic countries, because it ain't looking good, is it? I will see you on Monday.